Wish you could fund 400 mortgages a year and still have a life? If so, you're going to listen to this conversation I have with Sarah Albert. Sarah is a mortgage broker based out of Moncton, New Brunswick, been in the business for many, many years. And I've known her for a long time, and it's an absolutely fantastic conversation. We talk about how she overcame some big failures, the lessons she learned from it, and how it helped her build a much better business today. We talk about how to create a process that can handle 400 to 600, in fact, to 600 files a year. And we have a great conversation about process. And then she also talks about how to manage that process as well as your people. This is a fantastic conversation. I think this is one of those episodes you're not going to want to miss. One of the things we talk about in this is that she was one of the people that went through our $25 million blueprint program many years ago and literally implemented every single thing we talked about to a level that I have never seen before. If you're interested to find out about more about our $25 million blueprint, if you get on my email list, so if you click on this podcast episode and say join list, you can get added, or find me on social. You'll see on my socials and Instagram, you can join it there. And we'll send you some info when we're gonna roll something that out again. But let's jump into this conversation with Sarah. Check it out. And thanks again for listening. Hey, Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Live too.
Welcome to Moncton.
Yes, it's been great so far. Everybody's been great so far. So tell me, to anybody who doesn't know who you are, how long you've been in the mortgage business and how did you get here?
So in the mortgage business itself, I always know how old it is. It's going to be 18 years in February because my daughter was a year old and she is going to be 19 in February. So 18 years mortgage broker. And prior to that, worked for the banks. Started with 21 as the customer service and answering calls for the branch. So I've been in it for almost 30 years.
Wow. Yeah. I'm 18 years in brokering and this year as well, or last year and 19, that coming up to 19.
I was talking to someone the other day, one of the banks, and I was like, so I still have like 15 years to go in this industry. And I never thought that I would have like a 35, 40-year career in one industry.
Well, it's not as common anymore for people to do that. But I think when you're self-employed like we are and you like what you do and you're good at it, then and you've reinvented yourself a few times over that period, I'm sure there's...
Oh, it's what it's all about.
Yeah. So
thinking about doing it again.
Right. Well, then I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. Yeah. Okay. So tell me about your, your journey of this 18 years. What are some of the milestones that you can think of that were like, oh, this was a big thing? I know that there was something you did with Property Guys at one point. And what are some other kind of milestones? They could be dumpster fires or they could be also good things.
The dumpster fires are the best.
I know. I've got a few of those too. And
who gives a shit about my accolades? Like, talk to me about how you failed,
right?
And how you got your ass back up and did it again.
Okay, so to walk me through that. Talk me through something that you'd failed at, and now looking back, you were like, "Oh man, I actually learned a lot from it."
Well, I failed at the Property Guys mortgage thing. Like, I really fundamentally believed that mortgage brokers could change the real estate industry. I was young.
Yeah.
32, maybe 2 years experience. I thought it was all that and a bag of chips and trying to convince folks. And, I really underestimated what life experience is.
Mm-hmm. So if you're in your 30s listening, pay attention.
Yeah. You've got to pay your dues. And I also underestimated what it was to really grow a company on a national type scale with licensing and compliance and people and commission people.
That's exactly what I'm doing right now, by the way.
Yeah, you're nuts.
I still have my hair.
Never want to do what you do.
So tell me, okay, so you ended up, tell me about that. So because I know the story, but maybe back up the train and tell me about so you're 32, you're like, hey, I want to get this Property Guys. How are you involved in Property Guys? And then what was the plan? And then when did you realize I need to reset?
I was involved with them for probably 7 years.
Because they started in Moncton.
They started in Moncton, and it's a really cool story. And, it's something we all, it was a project started in school. They would turn signs around from after the election and be like, for sale by owner.
Right. They use the election signs?
Election signs.
Oh,
so really neat, like school project.
Grassroots.
And like Moncton is a really small place. And everybody kind of knows everybody. So eventually I met different people that worked for them. And one of my coaches was Gare Maxwell. And he's like, Sarah, you're like very Aaron Brockovich. You like want to change things. You want to fight the man.
Right. You're like, yeah, I do.
Yeah. Like, and I'm a kid that came from foster care and an addicted parent and like, went through my own struggles and all these things as a teenager. I've always had this little fight in me of like, I can do it. I can prove it. So back in my 30s, I had a little bit too much ego, and ego to me equates to insecurity, that I couldn't see my nose despite my face situation. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So Sarah Wright and myself, back then she was Howard, we're like, we're going to change this and we're going to grow this. And we're going to have these processes and systems and show people how things are done differently. And what we underestimated in a franchise system was
did you own a franchise, or did you help with the parent? Did you help the head office roll out franchises?
Well, they wouldn't give me the national company, so I went and bought my ass a franchise.
Okay, so
to prove my point,
right?
Which was my. I never wanted to be in the real estate business on that side of it,
right?
On the realtor type listings, all of that side. What I wanted to prove was that I was capable of running their mortgage company.
Right.
So, my first, but I mean, again, the experience in all of this, like I learned so much from, you think about a bank or you think about a franchise system, you learn so much about systems,
right?
About process, about profit, about who's making from the top line. Like it's just so interesting.
It's like a business school all built into it. And a lot of people would be better suited to start something that's a franchise model, that if you're trying to understand business, because
not everybody's an entrepreneur.
Right.
Most people just, they want to be given direction. It's really hard to be an entrepreneur. It's really hard to wear that type of weight on your shoulders. So yes, with Property Guys, it was our $1.5 million lesson.
Right.
And, it was a...
So is that what you were into it for, or is that what it cost to actually get the franchise?
Oh, that's what we lost.
Oh, this is what you lost. That was when all the dust settled. Okay. That's a big dump. That's like a dumpster fire. That's a couple dumpsters in my,
That's a big dumpster.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got this franchise. How long did you run it for?
7 years.
7 years. And was it profitable at points, or was it always a struggle to get it to go?
Always a struggle. I was personally never profitable. Like I can't speak to other franchises in the system, and I have so many good friends still in there, but I was not profitable in the model that I was working at. My mortgage company was profitable.
So your mortgage company kept you afloat because
Correct.
the Property Guys was actually losing money.
The fact that I was a mortgage broker is what kept us afloat. But at some point, you just can't keep doing both.
Right.
And, you have to decide what life you want. And like, there was a day we were just driving down the street. We were actually going to a meeting at Omista Credit Union about commercial mortgages. And I said to Sarah, how long will it take us to recover this money and become profitable and as successful and make the change that we want to? I said, give it to me analytically, math-wise. And she's like, probably 10 years. And I knew in that moment, I'm like holding the steering wheel and I'm like, I can't do this.
And this was 7 years in? Was this?
This was 7 years.
Right.
6 years in.
6 years in.
It took us a year to really structure how we were leaving it because we didn't want to leave it disrespectfully.
Right.
We had this really special team who are all still with me today that we wanted to protect. And they meant so much to me, and they still do. And
were these mortgage people, or are they real estate agents?
Mortgage people.
Okay.
It was my mortgage team.
So you had this real estate company. The idea was if a mortgage broker can own a real estate company, it's like peanut butter and jam. It could be.
It could be.
If it doesn't, depends on the situation. But so that was the idea.
Yeah. But we had peanut butter jam and then a little bit of ketchup because it was private sale. So I don't know how you would feel about eating that sandwich.
Right.
It was pretty intense. So, I mean, we had a lot of responsibility, and it was in that moment, like when I had to say, when we were shutting things down, I had the same assistant for 12 years, Brenda. And when I looked across the table at Sarah, and I'm like, so if we do this, like we have to lay off Brenda. Oh, like that is a emotional, really hard thing. She was like my mom. Right. So like making sure that those people all had really good, soft, safe places to land mattered. Like I remember with Brenda, I called a real estate agent here in Moncton, Suzanne Trottier, and she was a legend. And I knew she was looking for somebody. And she made me a deal. She said, I would love to have Brenda, but you have to promise never to take her back when you switch gears and you
change your mind.
You rebuild.
Right.
So I had to make this promise, right?
Oh, that was pretty wise of her to say that.
She was so wise.
Because that would have been tempting to do. You'd have been like,
I would have done it all day long.
Right.
But you know what I didn't know in that moment? You never know what somebody's thinking. Mm-hmm. She wasn't well. And she passed away 9 months later. And
the realtor or Brenda?
The realtor.
Oh.
And her daughter was taking over the business. Brenda wasn't for her.
It's for her daughter.
Brenda was for her daughter.
Oh my goodness.
And I became best friends with her daughter. So like, how is the world really neat?
Right.
And cool and constantly connected. I mean, it's easier to be really connected in Moncton.
Mm-hmm.
But like, again, that's why you never burn bridges.
No.
Right? Like, it's such a fundamental thing to care for people. You have to make business decisions. People are not happy about those business decisions. I can tell you, investors that lost money with me were not happy. Mm-hmm. But I sat across and I told them to their face.
Mm-hmm.
There's no
that must have been a hard conversation.
Oh, it was one of the most humbling experiences I've ever been through. It changed me for life, for sure.
Right. Oh,
for sure. It took me a while to build back my confidence.
Yeah.
And it's only so that would have been in 2017.
Yeah.
And I'm just really getting like that Sarah Albert, like, oh, the dog is out of the cage.
The swagger.
It's like a swagger, but it's a different swagger.
But it's not a cocky swagger. It's more of a humbled swagger, maybe.
It's a humbled swagger. And I've even noticed lately that as we're doing really, really well, some of that's coming back. It's interesting how mentally, when we're successful, sometimes our brain wants to sabotage us a little bit to be like, your ego comes out because you're trying to protect that success now. So it's like, takes a lot of energy for me to breathe and be like, I get to be this successful. I get to talk to these clients. I get to be creative and like change the way the business is doing. And so, we always go through these things.
So what was your biggest lesson that you'd say, biggest takeaway that from that whole situation, from the
property guys?
Yeah.
Relationships.
Okay. So if you were, okay, maybe I'll frame it this way. If you were to go back and you're still going to make the decision you're making, but you could, when you started, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, I would have listened to some of the smart business advisors that said to me on day one, Sarah, start small.
Right.
Sarah, learn more.
Right.
Sarah, do you really understand how to read financial statements and what you're getting into?
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, do you have enough money? Like, I was like, no, you guys are all wrong. I'm changing the world. I'm going to get a private loan. I'm going to do whatever I need to do.
Right.
So like you need to have that grit, but also you need to trust people that actually are seeing things from a neutral point of view.
They're not as you're emotionally attached to the whole thing. I was
emotionally attached. And I mean, isn't that what a mortgage broker does? Mm-hmm. Don't I talk to clients every single day that are emotionally invested in something?
And you can see them making bad decisions
I'm like,
all the
whoa!
time.
But our job is to be non-judgmental, factual, kind, and give and take that emotion away from them and go, hey, we're giving you advice here. So taking better advice and the emotion out of it probably would have been something I would have done different if I had known that side of the equation, right? Like you have to have emotion and passion.
Yeah, because otherwise you'll be like, why bother? So let's fast forward. So 2017, this kind of all blows up. Where's your mortgage business at that point?
Oh, we're doing okay. Like we're doing 150 deals a year, which is like a nice little number.
Yeah.
Like
and how many people are involved in that?
So I stayed back with Property Guys to do the very last deal, right to the day it closed. And Sarah Wright and Sue Pointer moved over to Premier and helped them start their fulfillment side of their business.
Right.
On salary. Mm-hmm. So I basically came back into the broker world with Sarah's support, but all of my staff with jobs.
Right. And do they still work for Premier Plus, or do they just work for you now?
No, they don't work for it. Because Don didn't ask me like that realtor did to not come after them.
Oh, he's see? Don, if you're listening, you missed there, buddy.
He already knows. He knew when I was making the phone calls. He's like, yeah, I know this is happening. Yeah. But he knew he could never ask that of me.
Right. that'd be a big ask. And because you'd been working with them for so many years.
And Premier came in and really, it was an opportunity for them to grow this fulfillment thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really strip that down,
I want to ask about fulfillment stuff
like
because that's something
Don came back and saved my ass. And he protected my team with me.
Mm-hmm.
It was an opportunity for him, but like, that's again, bridges not burnt when I left Premier the first time.
So tell me about, how many loans a year do you guys do now approximately? Do you know?
I know what my target is.
What's your target?
440 this year.
Where do you think you'll get close?
We're 118 away from it.
Okay, that's amazing. If you were out west, by the way, or in Toronto,
I'd be a gazillionaire.
You'd be like in your Bentley and a big gold chain on there, right? Sarah,
I know.
Like, what's up? Like, because that's so many loans. I find that people in the markets like Moncton, smaller market, mortgage markets are more efficient.
So efficient.
You have to be because you just do more trend. I'm sure people would say, well, the price of homes are lower. Yes, but they do more. Like we
just see the world in a different way.
Yeah,
for sure. And, so our goal is 400. Our stretch goal is 440.
Right.
And so we're only, what would that be? 78 away from our actual business goals.
Right.
And, we have the simple math that we use for every employee you have. You need to bring in $200,000.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've really stripped it back to simplicity.
That's good. Yeah. Revenue per employee.
Yeah. It's revenue per employee, and some employees cost less than the others, but everybody is in their lane, and their lanes are so important.
Mm-hmm.
And they all need to be respected. So yeah, we'll do a lot this year.
Revenue, that Netflix revenue per employee is about $2 million.
What?
Yeah. Well, because Netflix, remember, they're like a streaming service and it's mostly membership based, but they have the highest revenue per employee.
It's crazy.
Out of any company.
I think Google would have it pretty high and stuff.
Probably, yeah. I'd say. But I mean, yeah, anyway, I like to look at those type of, and banks, 200,000 is really good for a small business. Like a bank, typically, you can look it up, but RBC and TD, some of those are be like 300, 350 per employee, but they got thousands of employees.
I would like to be at 250 per employee. Because 250 per employee builds in some safety for everyone.
Yeah.
It's not about my safety. It's about the business.
Yeah.
Safety,
I mean, if you could do 100 mortgages a year by yourself without any trouble at all, if everything went in, still, you'd be
for sure.
No problem.
Do I ever want to do that again?
Hell no.
No.
Right.
I never, ever want to do the soup to nuts. Like our brokers that do soup to nuts, these guys work hard.
Okay, so I want to ask about this. What do you do? How many people are on your team right now? And then who does what? So like you said, the lanes. What are the lanes that you currently have everybody in?
So we have an intake lane. And
who's that?
So right now we just changed it to someone who's on maternity leave. So we're doing this many loans this year and we're down a man.
Yeah. Okay.
So I said, well, guys, that means next year we got to do 600. They're like, oh my gosh, no more maternity.
No more babies.
No more babies. So we have an intake lane, which is generally Sarah and I, which is an introduction call.
I call it a discovery call.
Discovery call. It's letting the client know that we're here. We understand what they need. We determine whether it's the right fit. There's something we can do. So that's our board of leads.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're moved, they're entered, they're offered an appointment, they're called,
So then what happens after that?
3 attempts.
What happens after the discovery call? So then
it moves to the next stage, which is active.
And then who's doing that?
So the active, it moves into the next stage and the client starts to do their homework.
Which is the application documents, all that stuff.
We got to pass the puck. I can't react until you pass it back to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the client does the application, uploads the documents, and then we have a lane where everything's downloaded and underwritten and reviewed and notes all done for me.
So that must be somebody else is doing that, right?
Somebody else is doing that.
Yeah.
And then it gets moved into the automation of call 2. So I can call them and do the strategy call.
Yeah.
And when I do that strategy call, I write all my notes, what I'd like to see happen, pre-approval letters, tips, attachments I want them to understand, whether it's the first-time homebuyer savings account, rebuilding credit, whatever it is.
RSP, whatever.
All the things. And then we move it into a summary.
I can tell you did fulfillment because your systems are good. They sound really good.
I don't do the summary. I do the notes, and my team sends out this beautiful email with a couple of scenarios, all the attachments.
And that goes to the client.
The client.
Yeah.
And then it moves into, either they're a roadmap, which we can track.
Yeah.
And so they're either a roadmap or they're pre-approved with conditions. Or they're fully pre-approved. That's when the automation hits the realtors that your client's been pre-approved. So like we have these little buckets. So a roadmap is, we got a lot of work to do. We're probably more than a year out.
How many people would you say you have in that bucket or in that?
We run that bucket like crazy. Like there's so much opportunity in decline.
Most people, a lot of people say a lot of people will just say no to that. But what happens is a year later, that's why you're doing 400 files a year.
Oh my God. And you've taught them. Yeah. And in the interim, they've sent you their mother and their dog.
Right.
And they're everybody, because Sarah paid attention to me. So we build a roadmap with every step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And these guys check the people that are serious about buying a house.
They do. They check the boxes.
The boxes. All they want is someone to give them direction. You need more credit. You should pay this down. Let's save a bit more money. But there's some that are in this pre-approved with conditions, right? You need to get a separation agreement. Like you're close. We just need these little fundamental keys before you start shopping.
Right.
So those guys we know are usually 90 days to 6 months. A roadmap to us is about a year out.
Right. That's brilliant. I've not heard of anybody that has, at least people do this, but I haven't heard it explained this simply.
Oh, it's so brilliant.
It's so simple, but it makes a lot of sense.
But what you gain in that, the currency with the client for hearing them and respecting them is a currency you can't build just with Google reviews.
No.
You can't build because you're a baller with big volume. You're building relationships. If that person, I'm on vacation, reads out, Sarah or Sue or Kayla or Emma sees the roadmap, we all know what that client's working on. Like, how'd that go? And like, this is something I learned from you. We put in the notes the name of their pets and their kids and their ages. Like I talked to a client, I'm like, oh, we haven't done your stuff. So your kids must be like 12 and 14 now. And she's like, wow, you got a good memory. I'm like, no, when I talked to you 3 years ago, they were 9.
I'm looking in your window 12. Right now. Why are you?
I'm like, so like, this was something we took away from you, and we still have that in it's a process that we follow. That when I had done one of your courses where I'm like, how do we see people? And what do they need from us? So the currency in roadmaps, and the currency in delivering a really detailed email. And those emails can be all set up, canned, and you're adding the few details. So I don't need to do
the personalized
that.
part. Yeah.
I don't need to do that. Right. And so I'm done when it's on, I'm done when it's on active board. The only time I step back in again is when there's a live offer, or sometimes in my strategy calls, I'm submitting that on the phone with them because it's a refi. We know exactly what we're doing. And then that goes right to live.
Right.
So everything is where it belongs. Like I can look in this.
And so what software do you use?
We're all in Philogix Pro.
Okay. So you have the different stages, basically boards, Trello boards, essentially.
Yeah, I'll show you before you go. It's crazy.
And then, so there's you do the discovery call. Is somebody doing the document collection and app part? So is there like we call it fulfillment.
We have a fulfillment.
Yeah. So fulfillment person's helping. Then you got an underwriter, I assume.
Well, our fulfillment and underwriters are the same.
Okay. They have enough experience. Like
we're building that right now.
Because there's a different skill level required to underwrite versus, hey, this T4 looks correct. Like There
is. But here's what's cool in a system like this. It's so much easier to train your people. They start with downloading the docs, recognizing them, naming them right. They start because now they're doing your summaries, not the underwriting, but they're like, oh, that went from there to there.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're seeing the cake being made and they're seeing it come out of the oven.
So we teach them per lane.
Right.
It's brilliant. And because we need repetition in our business. Like, what if Sue is sick?
Right.
I can't fulfill 400 files.
No. So you've got what do we call that? That's like you have.
We have contingency plans.
Yeah. I was going to say duplicity. It's the wrong word. There's redundancies.
We need it to be redundant.
Yeah. Somebody else. So if something happens,
everyone's an expert.
Yeah.
And then we all have a second pick. Like you can have your first love language and then your second love language.
Right. Oh, that's good.
Our team is that way.
So how many people on the team right now? There's you, there's the other Sue. You mentioned a couple of names.
So there's Sarah, myself,
Sue,
who's been with us for like 13 years. Courtney, who's been with us for 12, she went through the property guy's journey in Ontario. Just moved to Atlantic Canada. So she's the one that keeps having babies. Well, the other Sarah does too. There's a lot of babies in our team. There's 8.
You're doing your part for the taxpayers. You're making little taxpayers.
We're just trying to build a new mortgage team.
Yeah.
Because help is hard to find.
Yeah. Just going to have to wait a while.
They are my succession planning. And then again, you guys are going to think that we're all crazy. So then there's Emma, who works for us, and Emma's my 27-year-old daughter. And then there's Kayla, who is Sue's 27-year-old daughter. So we've all been together for a really long time.
That's something I notice about the most successful brokers. They have a consistent long team. And if you are constantly turning over your team, you're going to struggle because it's always new training and then there's it just gets.
Every business is that way.
Yeah.
Every business is about, but like people ask, say, how do you keep your team? Well, they're family. But I mean, again, family can bring different feelings on for different people. Yeah. But they're treated with the utmost respect. I ask them every single week, like, are you happy? Is this lane that you're in, like, are you good with this lane? Are you finding this lane overwhelming? Where can we help you? Would you like to grow into another lane?
Right.
Like Emma's like, nope.
There are some people that are then, and if you push them, you'll actually lose them.
I would lose her.
Right.
She has told me I will quit. I'm like, are you sure? Yes. Are you sure? I ask her every week.
Right.
Because she's so smart and like so incredible at her job, like what she does in her lane, like, you know, everything from our customized cups to events to compliance to signing packages to every Google review. If it's local, she goes and delivers them a custom gift.
Right.
Like, again, aren't these all the things that you taught me?
Yeah, well, you did them. As I said, you've implemented everything. Yeah. So what you were doing, you said in 2017, you were like 150 files, now 400-ish files a year. Yeah. And that's amazing. And then a team that you've been able to build around that.
Well, and we've all been together and we've grown as humans together. And we want to know where people are going and we want them to be excited about their job and we want them to feel safe in their job. And I want them to care. Like, I want them to there's none of this quiet quitting shit on our team. Right?
I've read of that recently. It's maybe explain it to anybody who doesn't know what quiet quitting is.
They're there doing their job with no enthusiasm.
Right. And they just won't quit because they want the paycheck.
They need the paycheck. Everybody needs a paycheck right now. But, you know, if someone on my team, I can tell they're off when nobody else is around, I'm like, okay. So what's going on? How you feeling? How are things at home? What do you really want to talk about? Are you angry? Like, I just get right into it.
You're just right in there. Yeah.
I'm
it's like a therapist.
I'm like right in there. Like, hey guys.
Right.
But I'm also reverse vulnerable with them. Like these guys will go to the ends of the world to protect Sarah and I. And they have. It's kind of cool. Like it's really unique. Like we were just talking about we need to hire someone else. We understand where we're at and that we need someone else. We're just not sure what lane we're going to hire in. And I did talk to someone and I said, well, it'll be really important for you to come to Moncton and shadow with the team and meet the team. She's like, okay, like just to meet them. I'm like, well, no, it's got to fit with all of us.
Right. But that's good though.
She's like, pardon? Like what they think of me is none of their business. And I'm like, on my team it is.
Right.
On my team, we're not going to have someone come in and shift the energy. That energy has to blend in and we all have to want to support each other. So it's really hard for us to grow.
Right. Hence all the babies.
All the babies and also all the processes and systems. So what we've learned is it's hard for us to grow our people. So let's grow our processes and become efficient as efficient can be. Yeah. And that's been our goal.
Usually if there's a problem, it's a process is usually it's not the people, it's usually the process first. If you go try to fix the process, often that's where the issues are. It's not actually people, it's the process.
If I come out of the process, you have no idea how much trouble I get in.
Yeah, no, that's good. So right now in this current market, are you doing a lot of refis and switches? Is it still purchases? What's going on here in Moncton?
We're really balanced. We're really, really balanced. Like we've got a nice book of business. This is why I understand next year we'll go to the 5. Like I'm in the scale of the rebuild of the business now, where it doesn't just go up by a few. Like I'm doubling down.
Right.
People are renewing. People are refinancing. People are selling. People are having babies. So we've got that whole.
People are getting divorced.
Oh, those are hard.
Yeah.
Thank God we have me and Sarah because sometimes we just put one of us on each end.
Right.
So there's no conflict of interest.
Right.
So there's a ton of opportunity just in our own book that we've only really started focusing on in the last year and a half, because I've now had the team and the processes to do it.
Well, yeah, you got to build that first, the engine on the front end, and then now you can maximize on everything on the back end.
And then, the purchases are happening. Moncton is affordable. People still need to buy houses. People are still, there's a lot of challenge around what was remote. People are getting called back to work. So that'll be interesting to see in the next year what happens there. But like the exodus we have still coming from Ontario.
Do you guys work remotely, or do you all work in an office?
So we do a combo. We totally do a combo. So my office is in my house.
Yeah.
I have a duplex, and one of the units is rented by the company. So I get to walk down the back stairs.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's nice.
In your slippers?
In my slippers. I try to get dressed. I think it's time for me to come out of the house, though. I feel like that energy is my next evolution. I just been a little bit.
And if you want to expand the team and everything, maybe that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, the office is really big.
Right.
The office is pretty great because it's a big, beautiful duplex that has been made into our office. So, but on usually Mondays and Fridays, the team works from home. So those Mondays are always our busiest day. Everyone has made a decision to make an offer, get pre-approved.
Yeah, everything over the weekend. It's just,
Mondays, we wonder how we're usually caught up by Wednesdays. And Fridays it's totally unpredictable. It's pretty predictable in our team now because we do refuse a lot of closings on a Friday.
Right.
If someone sends us an offer and the closing date's on a Friday, we call the realtor right away and we're like, we need this closing date to go to the day before or the Monday, please.
Right.
Like we're very we don't do Friday closings.
Yeah, it can cause a lot of problems.
It's a big stress for the client waiting to happen.
Yeah.
It's just waiting to happen, especially on a long weekend.
Okay, last question. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think I should have that people would find useful or?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I think I rambled on a lot.
I don't think you rambled on. I think it was fantastic. Okay, I have a question. If you can't think of something, I'll ask you another question. What's the best change to your process that you've made in the last year? The best improvement or tweak that you were like, oh, this is so obvious now that you weren't doing before?
Oh, there's been a couple.
Because you guys seem to be very process driven.
Oh, it's just so brilliant. Like oh my gosh, the biggest one. It has changed the game in efficiency. So when we have a client, and this excites me.
Yeah, I can tell. This is good. This is a better question.
I'm like, that's so exciting. So when we have a client because we've done so much work on the front end, the minute their deal is live, like we're going through the approval process, we're getting financing letters out in 48 hours.
Right.
Realtors are like, this is a lie. I had one call me like, this is a lie.
That's what they said?
Yeah. Like, how did you send me this letter? I'm like, I sent the letter. It's like all approved. So you mean she approved it? I have all docs up front.
Right.
Are you sure? Like they fought with me on the phone. It was a realtor from another city who didn't really know me.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of weight.
That's a great social media content.
Yeah.
Realtor called me a liar.
Yeah.
Right. And then here's what happened. We had approval in 48 hours and they're like, this can't be real.
Okay. But this is what you taught. Again, I taught a lot of lessons from you, Scott. It's funny. And now that I'm talking about it, I realize it. It's decline fast and approve fast. Mm-hmm. If you can figure that out, you will win every time. And we have learned this really, really well. So what happens is it goes into approval. The lender sends us the commitment. We move that in automation to approved. The client gets an email that says you're approved. Book your approval call with this link and attaches their approval. And it says right in there, like, these numbers can change. We're going to talk about this on the approval call.
Right.
So I do the approval call and then I move it to fulfillment. And I'm like, next approval.
Right.
Wow. If you don't ask the right questions, it goes to fulfillment and signing packages end up being redone and there's miscommunication. So they created, when I do my approval call, all the things they want to know. Interest adjustment date, payment date.
Right.
Has the inspection been done? Could this price change? Is there any change to the closing date? Who's the lawyer? All of this stuff.
The thing is, all the problems that happen, if you were to track them, they're all the same problems.
Yeah.
It's just, but they're different on every file.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, is there a bridge on this?
Right.
Is there weird income? Is there anything that fulfillment could miss that could create miscommunication? So I talk through the client and they're like, oh my gosh, you didn't miss anything. Like interest adjustment dates and rates and if they could go down and everything is in there. Then I move it to fulfillment.
Right.
Ask me how many signing packages we redo. There's not a whole lot.
Right.
Fulfillment's correcting everything I put in there, watching for a rate drop, doing all the things. We're dropping rates right up until the 3 days before closing.
Right.
It's a bit manic, our process.
Right. I love it. I think it's fantastic. Hey, thanks again for listening. And hopefully you got some inspiration from my conversation with Sarah. And as she said, she took the $25 million blueprint program and literally took it to a level I had never seen before. So kudos to you, Sarah. That's amazing. If you want to find out more about our blueprint program, you can join my email list. It's something that we are going to roll out again. Go to my socials, I'll click on my link tree, or just click on this episode and click join my list. I'll be sending out an email on that in the coming weeks, but check that out. And thanks again for listening. And as I always say, there's no problem that hasn't been solved in your mortgage business. Your problem is who's got the answer. Hopefully this podcast provides you some of those answers. Thanks for listening. I'm Scott Peckford, and I will see you on the next episode.